The moment Jax opened his door, his alien maid didn't greet him. She collapsed into his arms, bleeding, shaking, and whispering the name of the colony's most untouchable sheriff. And in that instant, the quiet rancher became the most wanted man on Mars. The desert wind carried a thin ribbon of red dust across Jax Ryland's porch, whispering along the wooden boards like it had something urgent to say. He ignored it, the same way he ignored most things that tried to disturb his peace. Life on the colony's outskirts was simple: quiet mornings, stubborn crops, and a long-standing agreement with the universe that trouble should stay the hell away from him. But trouble, apparently, never signed that agreement. When his alien maid Syrah collapsed in his doorway 10 seconds earlier, Jax's world shrank to the sight of violet blood running down her calf. Now she sat on the edge of his sofa, trying fiercely to pretend she wasn't shaking. Syrah was always composed, always polite, always the picture of quiet grace. Seeing her like this felt wrong, like someone had taken a star and smothered it. "Don't touch the wound," she whispered as Jax knelt beside her. "Didn't ask for permission," he muttered, lifting the torn fabric anyway. Her leg wasn't just bruised, it was marked. Thin circular burns, precise, patterned. Not the kind caused by a fall or accident. Instruments made those. Military ones. Syrah swallowed hard. "It looks worse than it is." "Everything looks worse when you're bleeding on my furniture." He tried to sound annoyed. It came out worried. Her eyes flicked to his, golden, luminous even now. "Jax, listen to me carefully. If anyone asks, you didn't see me today?" He froze. "Why?" "Because the sheriff's office is looking for me." That knocked the air out of him harder than a punch. The sheriff's office. The same people who prided themselves on interplanetary order? Why would they chase a housekeeper? Jax tied the bandage tighter. "What did you do? Steal office pens? Forget to dust the vents?" A tiny breathless laugh escaped her. Pain softened but real. "I saw something I shouldn't have." He waited. She didn't continue. Outside, Jax's perimeter alarm chimed. A soft tone, easy to miss. Except he'd heard it so many years that his blood reacted before his brain did. He stood up, checked the screen. A drone hovered at the boundary. Quiet, unmarked, scanning. "Syrah," he said, voice suddenly sharper. "What exactly did you see?" She gripped the sofa cushion, knuckles pale against indigo skin. "Something the alien sheriff's office is willing to kill for." And just like that, the quiet rancher realized he wasn't alone on his land anymore. He was standing between a hunted woman and the most powerful law force on Mars. Jax had patched up enough machinery in his life to know when something was about to blow. Syrah wasn't a broken pipe or a stubborn motor, but she had that same brittle tension. Like one wrong question would crack her open. He didn't push. Not yet. Instead, he poured 2 mugs of his strongest herbal brew. He offered one to her. She hesitated, then took a sip and immediately winced. "That tastes like burning metal," she whispered. "Yeah," he sighed. "It's an acquired taste, mostly acquired by people with no taste buds left." A flicker of humor passed between them, small, fragile, but enough to remind him she was still in there somewhere, beneath the fear. But the quiet moment didn't last. The perimeter alarm chimed again, 2 tones this time. That wasn't a drone. That was movement. Jax set the mug down and walked to the window. A shadow drifted near the far edge of the ranch, slipping between irrigation pipes like someone familiar with layouts. Too smooth to be a stray colonist, too quiet to be human. "Stay inside," he said. Syrah stood anyway. "Jax, whoever that is, they're not here to talk." He grabbed the old shock staff from the corner, outdated but reliable. "Lucky for them, I'm in a friendly mood today." He stepped outside with measured calm, scanning the horizon. The dust hung unusually still. No wind, no sound, just a faint metallic hum. Then he saw it, a figure crouched behind the water tanks. Tall, lean, skin segmented like insect armor. Virexian, an assassin breed, and they weren't alone. Another came from the left, a third from behind the barn, 3 silent predators, coordinated. Ready. Jax didn't shout. Didn't warn, just acted. He swung the staff low, triggering the first irrigation pipe valve. Pressurized steam erupted outward, blasting one Virexian off its feet. The second lunged. Jax dodged, cracking the staff across its jaw hinge. The third lunged from behind him, and a bright pulse shot past Jax's shoulder Syrah. She held his old emergency blaster with trembling hands, but her aim was good. The third assassin staggered. "Inside," Jax yelled, grabbing her arm as the injured Virexian hissed and fled into the dunes. Two attackers down, one escaped. Jax slammed the door behind them. Chest heaving, Syrah's voice shook. "They weren't supposed to find me this fast." "Start talking," he said quietly, leaning in. "Because someone sent professional killers, and I need to know why." Syrah looked up at him, eyes filled with a truth heavier than fear. "Jax, I wasn't just hiding from them. I was one of them." Her voice cracked. "And they want me erased." For a long moment, the only sound in Jax's living room was the quiet hum of his air filters. Steady, predictable, blissfully normal. Everything else felt like it had slipped into a different timeline. Jax stared at Syrah. "You were one of them? One of the sheriff's elite?" Her breath hitched. "Not by choice. I was drafted into their covert unit, the kind that does the jobs the public never hears about." "And the burns on your leg?" he asked. "That part of the job too?" A silent tear slid down her cheek before she wiped it away with a stubborn flick. "No, that was punishment for asking questions." Jax exhaled, slow and heavy. He wasn't good with tears, never had been. But he wasn't cruel either. He grabbed a blanket from the chair and handed it to her without a word. She took it like it meant more than it should. "What did you see?" he finally asked. Syrah's gaze drifted toward his window, as though she needed to make sure no one else was listening. Commander Veth and his circle were moving off-world tech through the colony. Biological, illegal, dangerous. They used sheriff transports as cover. She swallowed. "I reported it, and everyone pretended not to hear. So they came after you. They erased me." Her voice cracked. Quiet, dignified grief. "Records wiped, badge revoked, orders issued for my repatriation," which is a polite word for disposal. Jax leaned against the table, mind working faster than his heartbeat. "And those assassins today? Cleanup crew. They won't stop." He rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "Then we make them stop." Before she could respond, Jax's comm tablet buzzed a secure channel. Only one person had that frequency, Merrick, an old Marine friend who never called unless something was burning. Jax answered, "Talk to me." Merrick's voice came sharp. "Rylan, listen carefully. Someone flagged your ranch as harboring a hostile asset." The sheriff's deputy filed it herself. "You're on a watch list." Syrah's face went pale. "She's helping Veth." "That's not all," Merrick continued. "Veth's men are already twisting the story. They're painting Syrah as a terrorist. Jax, the colony is being fed lies." Jax's hand tightened around the tablet. "So they're gonna come after us." "They already are. You've got maybe an hour, 2 if you're lucky." The line went dead. Syrah's voice broke the silence. "Jax, you have every reason to turn me in." He shook his head. "Yeah, but I'm not built that way." He looked toward the window, toward the colony that had just decided he was the enemy. "Looks like the quiet life's officially over." Jax moved through the ranch like a man preparing for a storm he'd been warned about all his life, but never believed would come. He sealed windows, reinforced door locks, activated old defense grid lines he'd installed years ago, just in case. Back then, the threat he imagined was wild animals or malfunctioning bots, not law enforcement carrying official badges and unofficial motives. Syrah followed him quietly, her steps lighter than earlier, but still uneven. "You're doing all this because of me," she said softly, guilt threading her words. Jax grabbed a crate of tools, not looking back. "I'm doing this because someone's lying, and I don't like liars." That earned him the smallest smile. "Humans are strange." "Aliens tried to kill me today," he replied. "Strange is the least of my problems." The alarm chimed again. 3 tones this time. Syrah stiffened. "That's a proximity breach." "Yeah, I heard." Jax glanced at the monitor. Multiple heat signatures approached the ranch. Not drones, not settlers. These moved in formation, professional. He powered up the outer shield grid. The lights flickered as the energy pulsed around the property. Thin protection, but better than nothing. You said they won't stop, Jax murmured. They won't. Sierra's voice trembled. Veth will send his own unit. Loyalists. They believe they're protecting the colony from corruption. They don't know he is the corruption. A hard blast hit the shield. The floor vibrated. Sierra grabbed the counter to steady herself. Another blast, then another. Shields at 63%, the system announced. Jax cursed under his breath. They're trying to crack the grid before walking in. Sierra pressed her hand against her temple. Jax, if they breach, there's something you need to know. Make it quick. My species. We're trained with neural resonance, a defensive ability, but it's dangerous, unstable. I promised myself I'd never use it. He looked at her, really looked at her. Her eyes glimmered, not with power but fear of it. Then don't, he said. We'll handle this the human way. Another strike shook the walls. The shield dipped to 48. Sierra's breath hitched. If you fight them, they'll kill you. Jax checked his pulse rifle. Not if I fight smarter. You don't owe me your life, she whispered. He stepped closer, voice low and steady. Maybe not, but I'm giving it anyway. Before she could answer, the shield let out a final sputtering hiss and collapsed. Boots hit the dirt outside. Jax reached for her hand. Stay close. No hero moves. But Sierra's eyes darkened, a glow forming beneath her skin. I'm done running, she whispered. And for the first time, Jax understood that she might be more dangerous than the soldiers marching toward his door. The moment the shield collapsed, the night outside swarmed with movement. Shadows rushing forward, boots digging into Martian dust. The low hum of charged weapons being raised in unison. Jax barely had time to push Sierra behind the kitchen island before the first stun round shattered his front window. Stay down, he barked, firing a warning shot that forced the first intruder to duck behind a storage crate. Sierra's skin flickered again, that soft, dangerous glow growing brighter, like electricity had woven itself under her veins. She pressed her palms against the floor, trying to steady her breathing, but every blast outside made her flinch harder. Jax, she whispered. They're here because of me. Let me end this. You're not ending anything, he shot back. We're getting out of this the same way we got into it, together. A heavy thud hit the door. Another. Then the metal hinges groaned under the pressure of something slamming it from the outside. Jax charged toward it, bracing his shoulder against the frame. The door held for now. Another blast rocked the wall, sending dust cascading from the ceiling beams. Sierra crawled to him, gripping his arm. They won't stop. Veth's orders are absolute. And if he's here, he isn't. The door finally buckled inward, throwing Jax to the floor. 3 armored aliens stormed inside, visors gleaming, rifles trained on both of them. And then Sierra rose. Not fully, her legs trembled, her balance unsteady. But her eyes burned with a kind of defiance Jax had never seen in her. The resonance inside her built like a silent storm. The soldiers paused, instinctively wary. They'd seen this ability before, trained with it, feared it. Sierra, don't... Jax tried to pull her back. She shook her head gently. I'm not doing this to destroy them. I'm doing it to protect you. A pulse rippled from her like a shockwave, silent, invisible, but powerful. Every soldier in the room staggered, their rifles dropping as the neurological surge scrambled their equilibrium. They didn't fall unconscious, but they froze, disoriented, unable to advance. Jax took the opening, sweeping in low, disarming the nearest soldier, and tossing their weapon out the broken window. Outside, sirens wailed. Backup, human backup. Dozens of lights approached. Colonists, miners, farmers, people Jax barely talked to. And yet they came for him, for her, for the truth that had finally surfaced. The invading unit retreated in confusion, stumbling back toward their transports as the civilian crowd surged around the ranch, blocking any further advance. When the noise settled, Sierra collapsed into Jax's arms, exhausted but alive. He held her close, forehead pressed to hers. Told you, he murmured, voice cracking despite himself. Human way. She smiled weakly. Looks like it worked. And somewhere beyond the rising dust, the colony's future shifted, quietly but completely, because one rancher decided silence wasn't worth living in anymore. When the last siren faded and the dust finally settled, Jack stepped onto his porch with Sierra resting against him, exhausted, bruised, but free for the first time in years. The colony lights flickered across the valley as dozens of humans and aliens gathered in uneasy silence, waiting for someone, anyone, to break the tension. Jax didn't give them a speech. He never had the right words, and today wasn't the day to start pretending. He just tightened his arm around Sierra and said quietly but clearly, "No more running. No more lies." Something shifted in the crowd. Heads nodded. Fear eased. Hope, small, stubborn, unfamiliar, took root. And as the first morning light crawled over the Martian hills, Jax realized the truth. He wasn't the quiet rancher anymore. He was the man who stood up when no one else would. And that single choice had changed the entire colony.